Isabel Thornton had always been drawn to the unknown. As an investigative journalist, specializing in forgotten histories, she found herself in the business of chasing whispers and uncovering lost truths. When the letter arrived, yellowed with age, scrawled in spidery ink, she could hardly resist. The envelope bore no return address, only the chilling words, "Winthrop House demands your presence." Isabel's heart pounded in her chest as she read further, her curiosity blooming. The infamous Winthrop House, shrouded in folklore and whispers of the supernatural, had long been a thorn in the side of skeptics and thrill-seekers alike. This was her chance to uncover the real story. Nestled deep in the misty forests of Blackthorn Hollow, Winthrop House loomed like a sleeping beast, its Gothic architecture weathered by decades of neglect. Isabel's car crunched over the gravel driveway, the towering oak trees enclosing the mansion like silent sentinels. The locals whispered that those who entered Winthrop House never truly left, doomed to wander its halls in an endless loop of shadows and despair. Stepping onto the creaky porch, Isabel inhaled the scent of damp wood and decay. The stained glass windows flickered in the dying light, casting fractured rainbows across the grand yet crumbling facade. Inside, the air was thick with dust and something else, something heavy, ancient. She felt the weight of unseen eyes watching from the darkness, an oppressive silence swallowing her every step. From the moment Isabel crossed the threshold, she sensed it, an undercurrent of wrongness that made her skin crawl. The grand foyer stretched before her, an opulent chandelier hanging precariously above a tarnished marble floor. Yet the furniture seemed oddly placed, as though someone had left in a hurry and never returned. A portrait of the Winthrop family hung above the fireplace, their painted eyes staring at her with eerie intensity. Strange whispers echoed down the halls, murmuring words she couldn't quite understand. And then there were the clocks, dozens of them, lining the walls, each ticking at a slightly different rhythm. Isabel reached out to touch one, but the instant her fingers brushed against its surface, the entire mansion seemed to exhale a deep, resonant sigh. It was the discovery of the journal that changed everything. Tucked beneath a dusty armchair in the library, the leather-bound book was filled with entries detailing the bizarre experiences of those who had stayed at Winthrop House before. Trapped, the same halls, the same whispers. No escape. One passage read in frantic handwriting. Flipping through the pages, Isabel felt a cold shiver race down her spine. And then a noise, a faint scraping sound from the hallway beyond. She turned sharply, heart pounding. The shadows in the corridor shifted, elongating, forming shapes that shouldn't be there. Something was moving in the darkness, something watching. Isabel realized she wasn't alone. Isabel couldn't ignore the journal's warnings. Determined to uncover the mansion's secrets, she set out to explore each wing meticulously. The house seemed to change with every passing hour. Hallways that once led to the parlor, now turning in on themselves, leading her back to the same room she had left minutes before. It was as if the house itself was alive, playing a cruel game. Her investigations led her to strange relics, a music box playing an off-key lullaby, a child's doll with one glassy eye missing, and a locked trunk containing clothing from decades past. Each artifact felt steeped in sorrow, whispering fragments of forgotten lives. Isabel began keeping meticulous notes, mapping out the rooms only to discover them shifting by morning. She wasn't the only one caught in its grasp. As she delved deeper, Isabel encountered others, pale, weary figures with hollow eyes, a former caretaker, a lost traveler, and an old woman named Margaret, who claimed she had been inside for decades. Each had their own story, their own theories. Some believed it was the spirit of the Winthrop patriarch. Others thought it was the house itself that fed on their fear. Margaret spoke in riddles, hinting at a hidden sorrow buried deep within the mansion's walls. The traveler, a man named Daniel, was obsessed with the clocks, convinced that synchronizing them would break the house's hold. The caretaker, Mr. Ludlow, spent his days cleaning rooms that would reassemble themselves in disarray by nightfall. As Isabel pieced together the puzzle, a malevolent force grew restless. Doors slammed shut behind her, forcing her into unfamiliar rooms. False clues appeared, photographs with faces scratched out, pages torn from books. The air grew heavier with each discovery, pressing against her chest like an unseen hand. One evening, as she investigated the basement, a shadowy figure darted across the edge of her vision. Whispers turned into cries, and the sound of footsteps followed her wherever she went. Something didn't want her to uncover the truth. It was toying with her, twisting reality into a nightmare. She formulated theory after theory. Was it a curse? A scientific anomaly? She tested the mansion's boundaries, marking doors with chalk, only to find the markings vanished hours later. Her flashlight flickered as she scribbled notes feverishly, her mind racing against the encroaching darkness. Desperation gnawed at her resolve as the mansion's tricks grew more sinister. Time seemed to loop, trapping her in endless repetitions of the same moments. Margaret's cryptic warnings echoed in her mind, hinting that only by confronting the house's darkest secret could they all escape. Then, one night, she discovered a hidden passage behind the library shelves. The air grew colder the deeper she ventured, leading her to a room filled with old, rotting furniture and a single mirror standing in the center. The reflection within wasn't hers, but that of a twisted, spectral figure with empty eyes and a silent scream frozen on its lips. Isabel felt the walls closing in as the mansion's influence grew stronger. Objects moved when she wasn't looking, whispers turned into agonized wails, and the faces of those trapped alongside her began to change, fading, becoming less distinct. She realized she had to act before she too became part of the house. As she explored the east wing, she found disturbing evidence of those who had been lost before her. Personal items, letters never sent, and even a rusted wedding band sitting atop a pile of ash. The realization chilled her to the bone. The house did more than imprison. It consumed. Desperate, she pieced together the fragments of the past. The house was a prison for a tormented soul, a vengeful spirit bound by unfinished business. If she could uncover the tragedy that started it all, perhaps she could break the cycle. Through her research, she uncovered a hidden room behind the grand fireplace, an old nursery filled with broken toys and tattered curtains. Among the scattered debris, a child's diary revealed the tragic fate of young Eleanor Winthrop, a girl who had been locked away by her parents to keep the family's darkest secret hidden. Margaret held the key, an old locket hidden beneath the floorboards. Within it was a faded photograph of the Winthrop family, a little girl with sorrowful eyes. The girl's death had never been explained. Isabel now knew the house wouldn't let her leave until she faced the truth. But before she could act, the house retaliated with fury. Shadows twisted into grotesque forms, chasing her through the winding corridors. Each room became a maze, leading her back to the portrait in the foyer, where the eyes seemed to follow her with greater intensity. Margaret revealed more details, whispering about the rituals the Winthrop family had conducted to prolong their power, binding Eleanor's spirit to the house. Isabel pieced it together. The mansion was a vessel, an eternal tomb fueled by pain and regret. Now, with the locket in hand, Isabel had to face Eleanor's ghost and break the binding spell before time ran out. The mansion trembled, as if it sensed its end drawing near. The house was no longer just haunting her, it was attacking. Isabel found herself trapped in a repeating loop of corridors, each turn leading her back to the nursery door. The air grew colder, and shadows stretched unnaturally long. Every attempt to escape led her deeper into the mansion's hold, her resolve wavering. Doubt gnawed at her mind. Was she strong enough to face Eleanor's wrath? As she clutched the locket, she could hear the girl's mournful cries echoing through the halls. Each time she tried to move forward, the walls pressed closer, squeezing the breath from her lungs. Margaret and Daniel, her reluctant allies, grew desperate. Margaret's whispers became frenzied pleas while Daniel succumbed to the house's illusions, his form flickering between reality and spectral distortion. Isabel knew she was running out of time. In a final moment of desperation, Isabel returned to the mirror room. She held up the locket and spoke Eleanor's name, her voice trembling. The mirror's surface rippled, and the spectral child appeared, her face a mask of sorrow and rage. Eleanor's ghostly fingers stretched toward Isabel, memories of betrayal and isolation flooding the space. Isabel, tears in her eyes, spoke softly, telling Eleanor the truth her family had hidden. She showed the locket, the proof of her existence and the love that had once been stolen from her. The house groaned in protest, the walls trembling violently. Eleanor hesitated, and for the first time her anguished eyes softened. The oppressive force around them loosened as the spirit acknowledged the truth that had bound her for so long. A brilliant light erupted from the mirror, engulfing the room in a cleansing warmth. Eleanor's spirit, now at peace, whispered a final goodbye before vanishing into the ether. The mansion, stripped of its power, began to crumble around them. Isabel, Margaret, and Daniel fled through the collapsing corridors, their hearts pounding. As they emerged into the early morning light, the oppressive weight lifted from their shoulders. Behind them, the mansion stood silent, its dark reign finally over. Weeks later, Isabel sat at her desk penning the story of Winthrop House. Though she had escaped, she knew part of the house would always linger within her memories. The town, too, seemed lighter, free from the shadow that had plagued it for so long. Yet, as Isabel flipped through her notes, she hesitated. In the corner of the last page, scrawled in the same spidery handwriting as the letter that had started it all, were 4 chilling words: "You are not free."